Good evening, everyone. Welcome to So Now You Know. This is your host, Antonia. I'm so happy that you could join me tonight as we get to know another fantastic person in my circle. I want to share with you lots of good information about a good friend of mine who I have learned over time is a songwriter. She's a singer. She's produced a CD. She shares the same type of faith that I do, and I'm always... What I really like about Crystal Powell, who's joining us tonight, is that I look to her for strength. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means when I look to her at strength. The way her and I got to know each other is we work out together. We have the same exercise class that she probably more than me religiously gets up and makes this class at 5 a.m. Monday through Friday. And we've been actually doing it several years together. And that's how our paths intersect. So welcome, Crystal.
Thank you for having me tonight. This is awesome. It's great to be here.
Thanks so much for coming out and doing this. It is Halloween. Sadly, we had an incident here in the city, and so hopes and prayers to everybody that was involved with a tragic incident that happened here in Manhattan. But we know God is good, and He will hopefully work His magic with those folks that are involved with that. So let's get right into this. Okay. So yes, we are, I'm not going to say suckers for punishment, but we are disciplined soldiers.
Yes.
in our morning ritual that we go through. And like I said, I first got to know you when you came out and you had the CD. So I want you to, we're going to listen to that a little bit and talk about it. So tell us a little bit about you and your upbringing, where you're from.
Sure. I live in Mount Vernon, which is in Westchester County now, but I'm a native New Yorker. I was born and raised in the Boogie Down Bronx, and I'm proud of it. Love it. J-Lo and I.
You go way back. You're from the block?
Yes. Crystal from the block. Actually, both my parents were also my dad wasn't born in the Bronx, but, he was raised in the Bronx. My mom was not born in the Bronx, but they are city folks as well. And it was just really a great time to be a kid in the city, to see the transformation. And yes, I consider myself to be somebody who lived through the whole birth of hip hop in the Bronx. That's its birthplace. Always know.
Some shall say. Okay.
The Brooklynites always want to take it from us, but we won't let it happen.
Today it's the Bronx.
Yes. Okay. And through that, just always being kind of a musical type of person, just loving music, having a family that loved music, just sang because I enjoyed it. And next thing I know, I sang in school, different things. And the crazy path that God took me, and I ended up writing my own songs and hearing things and working harmonies. And I love it. I love doing what I do.
I mean, the first time I heard your voice, again, was in this fantastic, wonderful workout class that we go to. And after about 55 minutes of strenuous working out, sweating, and it's a boot camp class, and you're exhausted, something had happened to the music, and we didn't have music. And the instructor asked you to sing.
Yes.
And mind you, this is the first time I didn't know you as well. I was starting out in the class, and I'm like, sheesh, you're going to ask her to sing after all that? And I can't even breathe at this point. But your voice, and it was a gospel song that you sang, was so crystal clear. It was on beat. You weren't huffing and puffing. And I just said to myself, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Wow.
And I just said to myself, how do you do that? Like, how did that happen? And that's my curiosity and what we're going to talk about tonight. So when you talk about growing up and that you were from a family with a lot of music.
Yes.
What was that your inspiration in starting that? Like, I'm always interested in how people start at a young age to realize that this might be an interest? This might be something I'm great at.
Yes, my dad, I was telling you, my dad used to sing doo-wop with a group of his buddies. I mean, it was nothing professional or anything, but he always felt that he was the secret Marvin Gaye, you know.
He just wasn't found.
He just wasn't found, but he thought he was. And he had a keyboard in the house. And although I didn't know how to play formally at the time, we used to always go and he'd play chords. I'd see the chords he was playing and I'd mirror them. And so I always was fascinated by the sound that keyboard would make and how, you know, I don't know about you, but I grew up where everybody used to play that song, Lean on Me, because it was just dum, 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 dum. Everybody learns that scale. And I remember my dad thought that he was the most amazing player of Lean on Me. I'm like, Dad, later on, I'm like, everybody plays that song, you know, that has a keyboard. But it was just that kind of love of music that always, I love music in two ways. As kids, we used to dance and we were in like dance contests and we used to win and stuff. So music, rhythm, and song always seemed to be around. And, so growing up in school, sang in the chorus, and then I started to learn to play an instrument, and I played the Woody Allen clarinet and, enjoyed it. But I'm from the Bronx. We didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have formal training like a lot of the young kids that I would end up going to school with had. And so I was mediocre at best, but I thought I was wonderful. But I had a wonderful junior high school music teacher who basically said, try, go for the high school of the performing arts. Maybe you'll get in, you know, because I had a love for it. I didn't have the rare talent, but I had a love. And I did, audition to get in the school, and I was not great, but I thought I was great. And the teacher, realizing that I wasn't going to make it on my clarinet performance, he said something that literally changed my life. He said, you know, listening to you, because you have to sing the notes. They play whatever note on the piano they want you to sing.
So this is your audition.
This is my
audition for high school.
For high school. But before that, I sang, you know, in school. And then later on, I joined the Girls Choir of Harlem for a little while. So, you know, always singing. But he said to me, okay, you auditioned, but you seem to have a voice. Would you like to try out for singing? And I said, sure, whatever. But I wasn't ready. And this is all American Idol, but you had to come prepared. And I was totally not prepared to sing a song. So I literally did not know what song I was going to sing. And this crazy idea came in my mind. Everybody else was singing The Greatest Love of All or I Believe in You and Me, you know, these great ballads. And I sang the Disney tune, It's a Small World After All. Don't ask me why. But it was so ingenious in the sense that it was the antithesis of everything else they'd heard that day, and they really liked it.
And it stood out.
It stood out for that purpose, so it got me into the school. But dumb me still thought it was my clarinet playing that got me in the school. And when I saw my curriculum, I said, oh no, this is all wrong. I don't know why they have me for these vocal classes. I'm here for orchestra, you know. But thank God I was able to do both. I of course had my band and orchestra courses. I had my theory courses, and then I had some singing. And in that singing class that I took, we had an elective called Gospel Chorus. All of you who were ever in Gospel Chorus and High School of Music and Art, shout out. And it was absolutely awesome. It was this one room where our teacher let kids, most of them having grown up in church, some of them played the organ from like the age of 8. They were students in the school, but they had such a professional and great sound. I was like, oh my goodness, this is the music I've been looking to hear my whole life. And knowing that young people were making that music and giving it the polish that we had, I felt like, you know, I could do this too, you know, so that was kind of the jump off for me.
So that was your first time in like a structured gospel environment of how do we look at the
no
music.
church experience whatsoever. You know, Sundays growing up was reading the comics in the Daily News. You know, there was no church in my life. My family just didn't go to church. But through that, we started to compete at different church programs and different concerts, and friends of mine who were, just like our workout class, you build friendships with the people you associate with. And some of these kids, they would invite me to their church, and I started going. And next thing I said, I think I want to add this to my life. And next thing I know, at 15 years old, I'm the only one in my family going to church.
Wow.
And it was cool. It was fine. This was back in the day where a 15-year-old could roam the streets of the city in Westchester by themselves, and but I was fine with it. If we had a singing engagement in New Jersey, I found a way to get to New Jersey and sang and came back home. It was an amazing time, and I really am glad for it.
So your experience at the high school, was it supportive? Because you would think it would be intimidating at such a young age to be with, as you said, the more polished young singers coming from that background, which you didn't have.
Right.
So how did you develop the friendships there? Are those friendships you still have, or?
I was terrified. I will admit that. But I always had this, I think it's being the oldest of my three sisters. I always had to do everything first. I always had to do things to make my shyer sisters feel more comfortable. So even in a room of strangers, I knew I could sing. I knew I could do what I heard them doing. So I said, knowing that I can do it, I will do it. Whereas so I began to be one of those voices that they'd say, she knows the alto note. She'll sing it right. And people started to sit near me. They're like, she'll get it. And I would get it. And they'd be like, what's the note? I'm like, oh, it's whatever it was. And so I grew in my self-assuredness because I didn't have the experience, but I did have what it took at the time. It was fun. And then little by little, when they see you have it, they start to defer to you, and that made it okay for me. That made it.
So I always
okay.
wonder what it's like at that high school, because I've spoken to a couple of folks that have been on the show that have gone through that high school, and then it's fame. Like you think of fame, you just think, all day long you're going through the hallways, and you're doing a dance and everything. So what was that like? Because it seems like
literally I did that. We would go. My friends and I, we would go through the halls dancing and carrying on, and of course there were security telling us to calm it down. But when that movie came out, it opened a world to us that said these same folks, because some of our upperclassmen were in the movie, and it was like...
Oh, they had original, I'm saying original cast, but original folks.
Yes, when you saw the gospel, if you ever see the movie again and you see the gospel chorus singing, those are real gospel chorus members. There weren't extras that could sing. They were really, they were kids I went to school with.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that blew our minds.
Okay, and I just would be intimidated. I can't sing. I barely can dance, as you can see in class. I mean, I can't even put the two steps together to do the things that she does. So,
but you are still amazing. You're sitting here with your radio program, and I find that amazing.
Well, thank you. So, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll get back to that about actually following our passion, right? Because it is something, as we get to a certain age, we reflect on. So I hope everyone sits tight and comes back, and we'll be with Crystal Powell. Come back.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Are you stuck in a rut? Negative thoughts, feelings, and conversations got you down? Hi, I'm Noreen Sumter, the Potentiator. Tune in every Tuesday, 9 to 10 Eastern Time, and listen for new ideas on my show, Beyond Potential. Live life your way on talkradio.nyc.
Who do you want to connect with?
Are you an entrepreneur or intrapreneur looking to build your following?
Welcome to our show.
Follow Me Friday with Joan
and Priya.
Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern
on talkradio.nyc.
We're your digital connectors. Woo woo!
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Welcome back. It's Antonia. You're listening to So Now You Know. You were just hearing the lovely voice of Crystal Powell. She was singing Come On To Me. Great segue into the conversation. We were just talking about our passions, right? And yes. How do we cultivate those passions that we've had at a young age? So this is a beautiful song. It's one of my favorites on this small project that you did. What inspired you to eventually become the songwriter? Because you wrote all these songs.
Yes, I wrote them all.
What was the inspiration? Because they're beautiful.
Well, that's a great question. Something just hit me in my head. When I was in Bible school, for 6 years. I have never been very good at memorizing things, and you have to memorize scripture to pass tests. And the only way I could was I would sing them as songs. And then, when we had to write them down, I would sing the song in my head and then the scripture would come to me. So that's how I started to say, okay, I think I can memorize things if I put it in music. I started to use that more. Most of my songs are there might be a verse where it's not, but they come back to either scripture, verses, full scripture verses, or some kind of reference to them. So that's kind of what I do. I have written love songs. A friend of mine got married. They're like, I need a song. I've written that kind of thing too. I love that too. But that is basically my songwriting strength, And I was telling you that I was turning the big 50 in 2015, and I was going to have a big 50th birthday party, which I did. And I didn't want to do whatever, but I didn't want to just have a party where you get presents. I didn't need anything. I didn't need, thank God for all the gift cards, but I didn't need anything. And I remember that this comedian, his name is Michael Jr., and he said his career changed when instead of trying to get laughs, he started to give laughter. And I said, when people come to my party, I don't want them to have to give me. I want them to share my joy. And that's what made me say, let me put together a few songs that I've written and give them to the people that come to my party. And that's kind of where this whole thing started to put together. I had written songs before, I sang on choirs, wrote songs for my choir, wrote songs for my praise and worship team, wrote songs for friends. But I said, let me pull some of the songs that I've written together for myself to give out. So that's what I did.
So you talked a little bit about Bible school, but when you were growing up, you said, church wasn't a main focus in the home. At all. So at what point from your high school to when you were doing this, did all of a sudden your spirituality become more awakening you? Basically,
in the gospel chorus, I'll never forget it. We were at a competition, and we were singing a song. We were singing Walter Hawkins's Never Alone, which is a take on an old hymn, Never Alone, that he redid in that 70s, 80s soul music style that made the Hawkins family so famous. And I remember singing these songs about how God will never leave you. And I never knew that because I didn't grow up with that being something that to cling to and when you're going through different situations. And I remember singing the song, and literally in my heart, I wasn't saying it out loud, but I was speaking to God in my heart. And I said, is this real? Will you really always be there for me? And I heard still small voice in my heart say, yes, this is what this song means. And I said, well, if you're always going to be there, I'm always going to be there. And from that day, I said, okay, I'm going to, this God that I really didn't know, I want to have a relationship with him. So I didn't do it the way a lot of people go to a church, hear a preacher, because that wasn't going to happen. So
Right.
God has a way of pulling you in. By the way, music was my in. I always loved music, and that's what pulled me in. And so from that point on, I said, okay, so I started to go to church with my grandmother in New Rochelle. But then I ended up back in the Bronx, even though I something about that
Can't leave
Bronx.
the Bronx.
I started to go to church in the Bronx, and they had a very vibrant, fully accredited Bible school. And so I was, going to work during the day and going to school at night, and then going to Bible school at night. So that's how it came. It really came through that time at the high school when gospel chorus became a significant part of my life, to the point that I wrote a song for the choir. It was just really awesome. And it was that pivotal point in my life. I needed it because that's when my grandmother got sick and different things. She was the matriarch of our family. And without that strength in God, I would have lost my mind. I would have, because I was 15, my parents were divorced. I loved them, but they were so busy going through their own thing. I felt like nobody was taking care of me, and to have this entity in my life that really was going to be there for me no matter what meant everything.
And it's a good point that you make that, because you and I talked about this even when I was growing up. And when my mother first came to this country, she only spoke one language. She went to a church that spoke her language. That church happened to be Jehovah's Witness, and it wasn't until later in life. So my formative years was that religion, and then we eventually became to another church because that they spoke her language there. So I didn't have an appreciation for gospel music. It wasn't part of my upbringing. So when I went to college and then, getting exposure to just different parts of African American history,
Right.
learned about gospel. So when I took the class, and that is a big part of our class.
Yes.
And we always close out with a gospel song.
Yes.
And hearing your voice that day was, again, amazing to me. So when you talk about lyrics and you put them in the context of scripture,
Yes.
how do you figure out, and I always wonder about this in any song, in any genre of songwriters and performers, is that musicality of it, like figuring out either the hook, the verse, and then the music to it. So is that something like you're thinking about all day, or when you wrote this song, how did you put all those things together?
It happens in different ways. I remember one song that's on the CD, Higher Than I. The song our instructor loves that song. That's her favorite song on the CD. This is going to be an insult, but I was sitting in church, and Milton, one of our fellow boot campers who happens to be a preacher and also my godson, he was preaching, and he was in one psalm, but in my head, I kept hearing this little hook to another psalm. So while he's preaching, I'm turning to that psalm, and I kept hearing that I heard the music and the words, but it comes in different ways. Sometimes I have a piece of music, a little humdinger, you hum to yourself, and the music stays with you, and then all of a sudden some words come to you and you say, wait a minute, that would fit, or you work it, and then other times the words come first. And you say, okay, I got to sing these words. And you start singing them in different ways. And then you say, and then for me, it's amazing that each song has a different birth, a different coming to creation and coming together into what it is. And that's why I love songwriting so much, because it's not a formula to me. It's not, I think I was telling you that a friend of mine had written some poems and said, can you put music to this? And I was able to. But for me, my songs, the words, the music, the background, the instrumentation, I hear it all in my head, and then I work it back to say, okay, add that. And thank God to my friend Keith Williams, who, he keeps a keyboard at my house. I'm like, come over to the house. I got new music. Come. We got to work this out. And then we tape it. And then I send, with the CD, the same gentleman who produced Milton's CD, who is a phenomenal singer, you know that, he gave me time and he worked on it. And he's so professional, he was able to transfer my ideas and elevate them to the more professional level. And that was great.
So what artists out there are inspirational to you?
Oh, wow. So many.
Because I was telling you how I came to know the Winans.
Yes.
And I think back in our day, after that, it's the Winans, and there are definitely the main folks that we know about. But gospel music has changed so much.
So much.
In so many ways, it hasn't become, sometimes songs are mainstream.
Right.
When we took Kirk Franklin, other folks that have really changed the way that we as society listen to gospel music.
Yes.
More people, I guess, were exposed to it. But what inspiration, like who do you hear and you're like, ugh?
Growing up, again, I have to say the Walter Hawkins, Edwin Hawkins, and their sister, I can't think of her first name, but she was such a phenomenal singer. She was like my idol of that kind of alto sound that I happen to have. So I looked to her. But I was going through I had a boyfriend that I was in love with, and we broke up, and I was crying and carrying on. And I remember Donnie McClurkin's song Stand literally helped me out of a depression I was in at the time. And I remember saying to myself, if I could ever do what Donnie did for me in that song, I want to do that. It's not about me hearing myself, because no singer thinks they sound good. I really enjoy everybody. I'm crazy. I love Christian rap. I listen to Christian jazz. Like, I listen to so many different things. And I also listen to secular music to some degree, but not a lot, because secular music of this age is so, to me, based in the lowest parts of humanity. It's all about sexual arousal. That's all it is all the time. When growing up, that we had songs. It was about all of life. It was about so many things. So unfortunately, I don't think that there's as much to draw from as what we had growing up, but definitely the Winans, definitely Commissioned and Fred Hammond, definitely the Clark sisters, there were choirs that would come, Jeff Banks and Thompson Community Choir. We used to go crazy when the new album came out. Like, all our friends were like, did you get the new album? Did you get the new album? I know some folks are like, album, what is that? But, we used to literally buy wax, but those were great times. And they inspired me, hearing how gospel songs are written, hearing how the chorus and the hooks are made, it gave me a genre to work with.
So have you ever done like competitions with choir?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the first time I was ever on a radio show, I was representing my choir, and we were in the Wrigley's, choir competition, and we got third place. And
but it seems like you shouldn't have places. It seems like if you're at a gospel concert, it's all about
That's
God.
why Sunday's best. I'm not. I have to say, I watch it, but I'm not a fan of.
Everyone's good.
Yes, I'm not a fan of it that way. I'm not a fan, because I don't think it's a competition. I think you bring what God gave you, and someone else brings what God gave them. You hone it, you make it great, but you don't have to compete.
But there is that competitive nature
yes,
in all
unfortunately.
of us, right?
Even some concerts, there were competitions with the choirs, anytime human beings are a part of anything, there's going to be some comparison and some competition,
So we will be right back with Crystal Powell. Please stay tuned, and we'll learn more about her journey and her path and some of the projects that she has been working on. So sit tight and come back.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
If you have an interest in marijuana, you want to know about marijuana, law, policy, and culture, then feel free to join me, Joseph A. Bondi, every Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning on my show In the Know 420 on TalkingAlternative.com.
Legalize the herb. Continue to resist the passage of this necessary legislation.
Hi, this is Rob Kay.
And I'm Callie Alpert.
And we're hosts of The Rob and Callie Show. Are you looking for a show that talks about real stuff like life, love, the pursuit of being yourself?
Then you have come to the right place, because we cover topics ranging from chivalry to gratitude to your relationship with money and everything in between.
So listen to us on The Rob and Callie Show, Tuesdays, 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on talkradio.nyc.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Hear my cry, O God, unto my prayer attend, for unto you will I call, from now until the end. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I, higher than I. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I, higher than I.
Welcome back. We're here with Crystal Powell on So Now You Know. All-time favorite. I love that song. I love that song, Higher Than I. It is a beautifully, beautifully written song. And I know the first time I heard it, immediately, no matter what, I can't even remember what I was going through that day, but it was so relevant.
Yes,
right?
that's what
it was
people
so
have been saying.
Relevant.
Yes.
And I remember it had to have been a while after this, you had finished this project, that I was giving carpooling with a friend to class, and we were on our way home, and I said, "Oh, you got to hear this from Crystal," and it was in my CD. I was like, "Oh yeah, she's in her." And as soon as I started playing, she just had tears in her eyes, and it was so relevant to what she was going through. That I just gave her the CD, like that. You just hear the inspiration behind those words.
Well, that was the song that I was telling you that I was literally in church, and that scripture has always helped me, because we have to admit in life, no matter how much faith we have, that there are issues that are bigger than us, that if we took every resource we have, there's nothing we can do to change things. But when we are overwhelmed with life's problems, if we can get that spiritual strength that comes in spite of what we're going through, it makes it bearable. It makes it so we can get up, because, you know, like I said, I literally, there's this idea that people of color don't get clinically depressed. People of color, we have this strength, but you know, maybe we're a weaker version of our forefathers now because of the comforts we have. But I remember struggling to get out of bed in such a terrible feeling of despair that I didn't know how each day was going to go. And it was very sad for my family to watch me. They knew I was depressed. I lost weight. My trainer Rose would be happy, but it wasn't the right kind of weight loss. Right, it was just being so sad that food didn't have any taste, and I just really had no emotional strength. And when I wrote this song, I wasn't in that place, but I remembered being in that place. And I said, this scripture really links into finding that strength to bear the what seems to be unbearable. And even in our workout class, I was telling you this, that the group of people that get up so early in the morning to work out and make sure that that part of their day is done by 6 a.m., that's a strength. And I drew strength from them, that even as I was working on this project, here you are getting up at 4 a.m. and then finishing stuff at the studio at 10, 11 o'clock at night for days on end. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm so weary. But that strength comes when you need it. And I give all the credit to God for that. And so when I heard that scripture in my head and I heard those chords, I couldn't help the fact that I was sitting in church hearing someone else. I had to like write this down and make sure. And over people say when they play that song, it really speaks to them. And that is all of the reason why I do it.
Yeah, I mean, just those two, hear my cry, oh Lord.
Yes.
How many times have we said something to that effect, right?
Yes.
Which always leads to for folks who always say, well, if God is a good God, why do bad things happen? Right. The difference between God's grace and his will, how that plays out. And I think a lot of times when folks are on the fence of where their faith is or are not quite sure, have gotten to the place of being able to define it.
Right.
Songs like this, and I think out of all the 3 songs, just really, in my mind, solidify that for me.
Yes.
But I think a lot of times, too, when we talk about the rock and we think about, as you were saying, being in a very dark space, the ability to see that you can come out on the other side. But then how do we rectify that with the horrible things that happen in our lives, with death or like a tragedy today, things that are just happening out of the blue? There's the inspiration of this, but then there's the reality of how does our God answer that?
Well, let me say, before I answer that question, one of the joys that I had with this particular song is I work at a synagogue of all places. I'm a church girl that works at a synagogue, and it's an Orthodox synagogue, so you can't come in there with a whole bunch of Jesus music all the time.
Right.
But I played this song for the rabbi, and he was like, "Oh my God." That's when I said, my gosh, if the rabbi is loving this song and playing this song in his personal time, that really touched my heart. But going back to these issues, there are a couple things. Maybe being a Bible student, I had to come to the understanding of, and to say it succinctly is, if you believe some of the tenets of God being present in creation, he gave us the right to choose. And when we chose a cause and effect world. We basically said, God, you're here, but we kind of want to do it our own way. And part of what came in with that choice is the tragedy, is the sickness, is the disease, is the broken relationships. So, as the human race made those choices, we have to live with them. Thank God he gives us the strength to do it. So I was talking to you about it, and I said, it's funny how when everything is going well in our lives, we take all the credit, but when things go bad in our lives, all the blame goes to God. If you got a raise on your career, very seldom do I hear people say, oh, I have God to thank for my raise. No, you're like, no, I worked very hard and I did this, and they recognized my skill and talent and I got where I am. But when things start to go bad in our lives, it's like, God, why did you do this to me? Some things happen because we're just broken people. We've all heard that thing, hurt people. And in the light of even today's events, you're innocently just traveling on your way and someone decides that where I am right now, everybody in my space is going to feel my presence in the most horrible of ways. It's very hard to understand and to rectify. But what we have to know is that I was talking about, when tragedies come, I'll use myself as an example. I love people, but I didn't have any kids. So someone else who might have experienced maybe sickness in their family or their child being very ill, they feel as though, oh my gosh, this is so hard on me. And sometimes I've turned to friends and said, you have the blessing of such a wonderful thing as to have a child that, yes, this is a rough time for you, but if you can flip it, I never even got that joy, and yet I still find joy in life. So even the things that we are struggling with, if we can understand that the ability to struggle is a gift with what you have, if you can just flip your mind to see it in that way, it helps you get to that place that says, for all I go through, I have the strength to make it. There's a saying that says, I give because I have. If you can give strength to someone, it's because you have the strength. If you can be that great parent or that great child of an aging parent who's going through something, or that great friend, it's because you have the strength. So God gave you something to give back. And if you can kind of wrap your head around that, you'll find that you do have the strength to make it through a lot of hard situations.
So you mentioned the synagogue that you work with.
Yes.
But I don't see, I think when I studied theology, like I sort of eventually started out a little Jehovah's Witness, went to Church of Nazarene, and then I ended up going to college at a Jesuit, at a Catholic institution. So I think in studying religion, and just looking at the different ways that folks approach their religion, I've always been one to feel that, everyone has their own God, right? They picture what that faith is, how they want to practice their faith. So I wonder about Judaism and how you put it in the context of what you believe in the work that you do. Like that must be some really interesting stuff every day to walk in.
It's
to walk in
amazing.
there.
It's amazing. It's a real blessing because the way in which things are done is so different. I was telling you that, when you go, most people, when they go to church, they know that part of the service is going to be the offering and there's going to be a collection taken. Whereas in synagogue service, they can't handle money on Shabbat. So therefore it is a totally different sense of the desire to give. It's not the rabbi standing in front of you saying, okay, give what you brought in your pocketbooks. It's you taking time in and of yourself to say, this is what I have. This is where my finances lie. And I will pledge an appeal or do whatever I'm going to do based on what I know I have. So there's, to me, a different thought process. And I so respect it. And it helps me to see how I give back to God in a different way. It's very different. It's, the generosity is the same. The generosity, the heart to give back to your religious organization is the same. That's the one thing I noticed. You'll have some folks that are very generous and some folks that are closed-handed no matter what religion you are. And so just watching that, it helps me. And then just the organizational ways. Sometimes church has this, especially the traditional Black church, it's organizational, but there's also a freedom in the way they do things. And sometimes if you can level that out to say organization isn't bad, let's pool our resources and do things a little smarter, it makes for a better thing. Even now with social media and everything,
there's so many ways, more variety.
Yes,
and the choices that you can make to where you want to where you want to practice your faith.
And I give to a lot of organizations through just through a little thing on my phone that I feel like I'm giving and I'm helping in places I would have never been able to help 30 years ago, just giving to my local church. Not that you don't want to give to that, but there's so much good work around the world to be a part of.
But I also think in ways it's changed, because I know growing up, we were very loyal to our churches. And these days you see a lot of, when you think about fellowship in churches where the fellowship or the numbers are shrinking.
Yeah.
Because people have variety.
People have a variety.
Homes of, faith.
Yeah.
You're going to a church because it has a great choir. You're going to a church because you really, really like the sermon and you like, so, I think within our own church, there's a lot of different variety in the way that we choose to show our faith.
Yes.
So we're going to take another break. So I hope everyone sits still and come back and listen to Crystal Powell on So Now You Know.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Are you into comics, movies, and pop culture at large? What about music and TV? Then you're in for a treat. This is Michael Dolce, your host on TalkingAlternative.com. I've been professionally writing comic books, screenplays, and music articles for almost 15 years. Catch my show, Secrets of the Sire, at its new primetime slot, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. and get the inside scoop on the pop culture universe you love to talk about. For more info, go to secretsofthesire.com.
TalkingAlternative.com.
So welcome back. It's Antonia with So Now You Know. We're talking to Crystal Powell, and that you were just listening to Thy Word, Like the Beat. You were making a little joke that you had Prince in your head when you were thinking about this. But how do you keep it original? How do you keep it from not? I mean, we have our inspiration artists that we listen to their music and we have inspiration. But how do you keep it fresh and different from each song?
The way I do it is, I think it's my love of music overall. Like, okay, for example, you played Higher Than I earlier. I had that kind of hard rock ballad idea in my head as I wrote. So sometimes I'll have a musical genre themed in my head as I write the song, and that helps me stay away from reproducing the same sound. Even in future things, I have about, I'd say 10 songs in my phone that I'm working on. And I try to make sure.
So what does that look like? You're just sitting there on the phone, you're sitting in a store, and all of a sudden you pull out your phone and you're like.
Basically, you'll laugh. I get most of my inspiration in the evenings when I walk my cat. Okay, that's right.
Okay,
I walk
back to that
my
because I heard
cat.
How do you walk a cat?
Okay.
Is it a leash? Like you put him on a leash?
No, he won't let us put him on a leash. But he basically, when I come home from work, I open the door and let him come downstairs, and he just comes out. There's a fence around the backyard, and he just comes out and sniffs the plants and just gets that vibe of the air for about 10 minutes, and then he's like, "All right, I'm done. Come on, dinner time." So so yes, I know all my friends are like, my mother stayed over my house for a while, and she trained the cat to come out every day. She would sit out and
so he still has his litter box. It's not like he's going out.
Everything he is not a street cat. He doesn't do his stuff outside, but he comes out and kind of hangs for a minute. It's his evening walk, and then we go upstairs. And he
okay.
Yeah, it's
right.
Weird, but it's an everyday thing. Normally in those times, I'm by myself. It's quiet in the backyard, and I'm like, wait a minute, I think there's a song in my head. So I pull out my phone and I record it, as a voice memo. And then I take it upstairs and I start to write more words. Okay, that might be the chorus, but what's the verse? What are you feeling? And that style that and then I call my music friend Keith, and I say, listen, Saturday, you got to come by my house because we got to work on it. So then now I'll have a keyboard under it. And then I'll say to myself, well, in the way I wrote the CD, I basically said to my godson, listen, I need you to do the background vocals because he's a professional singer. He tours with Darlene Love. And I'm like, okay, I need you to do this. It's just all starts from that one little thing in the phone, Thank God for the phone, because when I think about the old cassette tapes I had of the songs, that's so embarrassing that I can remember when I'd be like, click, and singing into a cassette tape that would pop, and, but I have, matter of fact, I save my old iPhones because they have music I want to still use.
Oh, yeah, yes, right? You have to back those up.
Yes,
you have to be in iCloud, you have to back those up.
Yes, they are in iCloud too, but it's quick to just do that. But yeah, I try to keep it different because I like different music. Yeah. I am one of those people my dad was eclectic. My mom was eclectic in her musical taste. And I feel like I got that too. I'll listen to like, there's this Russian gypsy band that I listen to. Don't understand a word they're saying, but I just love the energy that they sing in. So, or sometimes Justin Timberlake, if I can find a song, like, just a little style or something we hear in class. Class gives me a lot of inspiration because I wouldn't listen to half the songs that I hear if it wasn't for the music she brings, you know?
So I am going down that path of the Big 5-0. You were very...
welcome to the club.
I have time.
Okay.
So this was a big project. I mean, you decided that you were going to do 3 songs.
Yes. And it turned into
CD.
4 because Thy Word came to me while I was in it.
And it's been successful.
Thank God.
So what are our next steps? Because we're not going to wait another 10 years.
No, not going to happen. Not going to happen. Basically, I'm working on the songs now. And what I want to do is by 2018, have the CD ready. But I want to do more. I'm grateful for the help I had on the first CD as far as production, but I want to do more. I want to control, because I was telling you, when I did that CD, because I was under the gun to have it done by my birthday, I was sick. I had bronchitis. It was just, I was drinking.
Well, you sounded pretty good.
I was drinking Dayquil like it was vitamin water. It was ridiculous. But now I want to be able to do it in a slower time frame and really, I'm a perfectionist, you know, which can be a problem because it leads you to procrastinate. But I'm pushing through that procrastination to, in the time frame that I'm giving myself, produce the best. And that's why I always tell you, our class, I know we keep talking about our workout class, but there's a radio host in the class. There are other recording artists in the class. There are business professionals in the class, and we all get up at 5. And these people give me strength. And our trainer, she's an awesome woman too. And I kind of keep her as my audience. Like I think of, she's the embodiment of my audience because she is a musical person, being a dance instructor. So if I bring her good product, she'll respond to it. So it helps me. So I'm trying to stick to the goal.
So what about theater? Because I know recently you and your sister put on a fantastic show. And again, you guys love to celebrate your birthdays in like these over the top ways. This one puts out a very nice sounding CD. Her sister puts out a play. And am I right that this was the first time that she kind of put herself out there to do this, which was amazing because it is a vulnerable step to take when you're putting yourself in front of an audience.
Yes. My sister, she's less talkative than me, but she is a powerhouse, you know, and basically she told me, I believe for my 50th birthday, you did a CD. I'm going to do an old style variety show like Carol Burnett and like Saturday Night Live. So get ready because you're in it. And she made me even write a skit, you know, and I had written skits before for church, you know, in skit ministry. So, but she came up with this family that it's going to be a movie. The Frugals are going to be a movie. You saw the Frugals.
Yes,
the
very
Frugal.
funny.
It's this crazily cheap family, Penny and Paola Frugal, and my sister wrote it, and it's genius. And then the actresses that play the Frugal mother and daughter, one of them is in our boot camp class. They are phenomenal. Dorothy has done commercials. I see her face on TV all the time. Tiffany is a stand-up comedian, so you know what that brings to the table. And yeah, it's really awesome. And there's a movie in the works. There really is a movie in the works.
Okay, so we have another CD, and then there's going to be a movie coming.
Yes.
I mean, this is just a very talented family. So when does your sister sing? Is there anyone else sing?
She used to sing in our choir for years and years. Now she's so busy kind of pushing other people forward. She doesn't sing as much as she used to, but if I need her to do background for my next CD, I'll make her do it just like she made me assist her in the production.
And you're not paying her.
Not at all. It's all free work. Or as the church mothers used to say, this is your reasonable service. You know, but no, I appreciate it. I'm the oldest. My next sister, she and I don't have kids, so we always said that we wanted to live a life of service. My baby sister has 5 kids, so we always were like, just because you don't have babies, that doesn't mean you should just live your life. You should still be giving and still be pouring out. So, we took that to heart, and that's what we're trying to do. And for our late bloomers, because like I said, my CD came out for my 50th birthday. Her show came out for her 50th birthday, which was a year after.
It's never too late.
It's never too late.
Not at all.
It's never too late. And Darlene Love is in our class, and she's 75 years old, rocking it, doing great things. So that inspires me.
So where can we find the latest CD?
You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on Amazon. Crystal is spelled like the word, and Powell, Powell, like my cousin, General Colin Powell. That's what my dad says. Legally, I cannot say, but my dad says he's our cousin. You can certainly find me. I try to look myself up. And also, if you just want to give it a listen, it's also on YouTube as well. So find me. I'll probably give you some links to other things.
And if folks out there have any questions or want to reach out to get in contact with Crystal, you can definitely email us at talkradio.nyc. So now you know. And we can get that information to you.
Great.
So we're going to hold you to a deadline. So when do we think? You said 2018.
I want to say my birthday, September 1st, 2018. We will be back on this show with new music.
Yes.
Yes.
With definitely new music. And do we have an inspiration? Do you have a?
My inspiration in this next one is fun. I know that sounds weird, but you ever put in a CD and it just brings the fun. It just brings enjoyment. I'm just about it's going to have some reggae. It's going to have it's going to have like all those genres that I love that I don't get to tap into as much. It's going to be there. It's going to be there.
Right. That sounds really exciting. So do you play any instruments on the music, or? If
you ever want to hear keyboard that makes you run and scream, you want to hear me play.
No,
but
that would be, me.
I play the flute. I play the clarinet. I play the flute actually better than I play the clarinet. And I play the keyboard enough to write songs, But and the triangle. I am a virtuoso on that triangle.
A lot of gospel songs have that little ding.
So if you ever hear that in a song, that's Crystal.
So we want to hear that at one of the starts of one of your songs.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming out tonight and sharing your story and your path. This is so exciting. And like I said, it just opened a whole new path for me. Normally our paths may have never crossed, but for the fact that we were disciplined enough to get ourselves in shape.
Yeah.
Trying to get in shape. And through, this friendship, we got to know a little bit about each other. And I just think it's amazing because, like I said, I can't sing, I can't dance. So when I see other people doing it and doing it so well, and very humble about it, I just appreciate it. So I'm so excited that you could do this.
Thank you. And great things are coming your way as well. It's just great to watch.
So I can do backup on your next CDs?
You have to audition first. You have to audition.
Should I audition like you do? Come in and do, come in playing the clarinet and say, I think I can sing. Because as you said, it's never too late. My singing career can still come. Thank you so much. And I thank all of our listeners out there that were listening tonight. And you can catch this show at talkradio.nyc. And I hope to see you next week. And this is Antonia. And so now you know. Have a great night.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.
Who do you want to connect with?
Are you an entrepreneur or intrapreneur looking to build your following?
Welcome to our show.
Follow Me Friday with Joan
and Priya.
Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern
on talkradio.nyc.
We're your digital connectors. Woo woo!
Hey, all you crazy listeners. Looking to boost your business? Why not advertise on Talking Alternative with very reasonable rates? Interested? Simply email at info@talkingalternative.com.
Are you into comics, movies, and pop culture at large? What about music and TV? Then you're in for a treat. This is Michael Dolce, your host on TalkingAlternative.com. I've been professionally writing comic books, screenplays, and music articles for almost 15 years. Catch my show, Secrets of the Sire, at its new primetime slot, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and get the inside scoop on the pop culture universe you love to talk about. For more info, go to secretsofthesire.com.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Hi, this is Rob Kay.
And I'm Callie Alpert.
And we're hosts of The Rob and Callie Show. Are you looking for a show that talks about real stuff like life, love, the pursuit of being yourself?
Then you have come to the right place, because we cover topics ranging from chivalry to gratitude to your relationship with money and everything in between.
So listen to us on The Rob and Callie Show, Tuesdays, 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.